Yeah, sure. All right, so if you could scan the QR code to indicate your attendance, and we'll get started. Okay. Good. Okay, so first, a little about the fellowship program. So the purpose of the CFS fellowship program is to educate and encourage students to gain as much exposure to the different areas of corporate finance as possible. At the end of this fellowship program, we're going to be hosting a case competition for each track in which students will be grouped into teams to solve real-world business cases using technical skills that you gain throughout this program. The three different tracks being controllership, FP&A, which is financial planning and analysis, and treasury. Okay. All right, let's meet the team. So my name is Vijay. I'm the controllership chair. It's actually my first semester at CFS. I'm a sophomore at the Rutgers Business School, majoring in finance and minoring in computer science. And yeah, I'm also on BITS, Business Degree in Tech Society, as well as LIBOR, Little Lesson Bankers Records, their financial newsletter. And this summer, I'm going to be interning at Merck in their auditing division as an associate. And we have our two committee members. There's Eleni and Hamza. Right. Okay, so this is just a GroupMe that we can use if we want to, send messages to each other. You don't have to join this because it's only if you want to, because I will be sending everything by email. So you don't have to worry about that. Right, let's get started. Okay, so this is week 1, the introduction to controllership. Okay, so first things first. What does controllership mean, and what is a controller per se? So a controller is someone who has responsibility for essentially all of the accounting related activities at a company. This includes high-level accounting, managerial accounting, and financial accounting. The controller essentially will act as an overseer of the company's overall financial health, and they typically report to a company's chief financial officer, also known as a CFO. So why is a controller important? Why have the position at all in a company? So a controller is important because they act as an overseer of a company's financial health. Depending on what the company needs, a controller may also be responsible for hiring and training staff who will be employed in the financial departments of the company. Controllers are responsible for meeting tax, permit, and licensing requirements, in addition to calculating the bottom line for a company. Okay. So what are the objectives of a controller? So a controller essentially has two primary functions. The first is to take responsibility for overseeing the completion of internal control audits with focus placed especially on possible errors or fraud. They also have to develop and execute an operational strategy for the finance team's day-to-day activities. The controller manages monthly, quarterly, and annual financial accounts. They manage payables, receivables, payrolls, controls, and interdepartmental communications. So what are the different job functions of a controller? So while a controller can have many different duties and obligations depending on the company they work at, there are several universal skills and qualifications that controllers must have. So the controller can either work independently or with the team to, number one, plan and direct operational functions. This means that a controller is responsible for establishing a plan and directing all of the duties in the operational functions of an organization, all of which involve money. Number two, to improve internal control systems. So by law, all corporations are required to have what's called internal controls. These are essentially safeguards that a company can use to ensure that it is meeting all the requirements prescribed by law and it is keeping everything in account. Number three, the coordination and preparation of internal and external financial statements. This is very important because the financial statements are literally what a company can show as to its results and its financial health. And without these, no one truly knows how a company is doing, if it's doing good or bad, and especially the government doesn't know what's going on. Number four, hiring and training accounting staff. Controllers have to make sure that their subordinates, employees that work under them, are skilled and trained to do the work that they have to. And lastly, but most importantly, they have to ensure guidance to this principle called generally accepted accounting principles, also called GAAP, and standards and other standards across all of the business units. We'll talk more about GAAP later, and you'll definitely get into GAAP in your financial accounting classes. But what GAAP essentially is a set of rules and principles that all publicly traded corporations, all publicly traded companies and corporations are required to follow. So essentially, the main goal of a controller is to understand what the company's financial objectives are and to take the necessary steps in order to achieve them within the bounds of the rules. Okay, we are going to do a Kahoot. Okay. Right, it's the code, the QR code, so you can get started. Start. Right. What is a controller in definition? Right. Right. So a controller is someone who has responsibility for all the account related activities, as well as an overseer of the company's financial health. So in this case, it is both a. It's the controller reports to the CEO of a company. It is false. The controller actually reports to the CFO of the company, Chief Financial Officer, not the Chief Executive Officer. Right. Next question. This has two parts. What are two job functions of controllers? Is planning and directing operational functions and hiring training staff. So this one, they don't necessarily decide the investment decisions of a company. That's done by other people. What they do is they analyze information that's later used to make investment decisions, but they themselves don't make investment decisions. Because like for big companies, you'll have boards and things of that nature that will make important financial decisions about a company. But controllers, all they do is compile the data to see if they can do that. Okay. Right. What does GAP stand for? Yes, GAP stands for Generally Accepted Accounting Principles. And then our last question. True or false? Controller only manages annual financial reports. Yes, it is false. They manage every type of financial reports, whether it be quarterly, monthly, annual, that sort of nature. Okay, and we are done. Right. Right. Okay. All right, so that pretty much wraps up the end of this presentation. It's fairly short, being an introductory presentation. As we go forward, the content will be a little bit longer than this, and we will go much more in depth with examples and real life situations where these situations apply. Does anyone have any questions for me? Anyone does, or if you just want to leave feedback or comments, you can, there's a Google form you can fill out. I can take questions from anyone. Anyone have any questions? Okay, then we are done. All right, thank you guys so much for coming. I know it was a little, or it was a lot disorganized, but you know. Yeah, so next week we're actually going to be virtual. There's going to be a different track presenting here today. I will send out an email confirming we're going to be on Zoom next week. So I will be sending out an email confirming what time and the exact location of the Zoom room. And I promise things will go a little more smoother than we went today. But yeah, thank you guys for coming. I'll stick around if you have any questions. Yes, let me know. Nice. I mean, maybe. Okay. No,